always excited. Or are they just over the book? Are you over the book? If you are, my bad. Oh, I'm chewing gum. I just realized. Sorry, I forgot I'm chewing gum. We're just gonna get straight into reading it because, I mean, what else is there to do? That's what we're here for. To read the 5th chapter, the second last chapter of Homer Price. After this, I think at the end of the video, I don't have the books. They're back there, I just remembered. But I'm gonna show you 3 books, I think, that you could choose from that I'll read next for the What Are We Reading series. I think I might take a break after. I feel like I should take a break after every book if it's like a chapter book like this. But I'll take I'll just take one video off. Just as like a nice refresher, you know? Okay, so this one is called Nothing New Under the Sun. In brackets, hardly. That's interesting. I wonder why it says that. Let's start off with the first one. Oh, there's no picture. Sad. Okay. Anyway, sorry I have a squeaky chair. I don't know why I'm reading this because the light is not doing me anything good. After the county fair, life in Sunderberg eases itself back to normal. Homer and the rest of the children concentrate on arithmetic. I don't know, and basketball. And the grown-ups tend to business and running the town in a peaceful, democratic way. Republicans are still speaking to each other. I skipped a whole line. Election time still being a month away. The Democrats and the Republicans are still speaking to each other. The ladies' aid hasn't anything to crusade about at the moment. And Uncle Ulysses hasn't bought any newfangled equipment for his lunchroom recently. There's nothing for people to gossip about, or speculate on, or argue about. This is really hard to read. Like that, at least. There we go. Much better, much better. There's always the weather, the latest books and movies, and ladies' hats. But of course, that doesn't provide nearly enough to talk and think about for a whole month until election time. Uncle Ulysses, the sheriff, and the men around the barber shop usually run out of things to talk about toward the middle of the month. Sometimes during the mornings, the conversations is lively. Like today, the sheriff came in beaming and said, "Will I put on long woolen?" Oh yeah. Well, I forgot that he does like this. Like he talks like this. Well, I'll put on long woolen underwear. I mean, woolen underwear this morning. Why would he speak about that? So, said Uncle Ulysses, guess I'll have to ask Aggie to get mine out of mothballs this week. Said the barber. I wouldn't wear woolen underwear for anything on earth. It itches. Well, that was something to argue about for almost an hour. Then the subject changed to woolen socks, to shoes, to overshoes, to mud in roads, mud in barnyards and barns, chicken coops. Then there was a long pause. Only 10:30 by the town hall clock, and conversation had already dwindled to nothing at all. Nothing to do but look at our barber shop window. There goes Doc Pelly, said the barber. I wonder who's sick. Judge's wife having a fainting spell, maybe, suggests the sheriff. Colby's wife is expecting a baby, said Uncle Ulysses. I'll ask Aggie this noon. She'll know all about it. There's Dulcie Dooner, said the sheriff. He hasn't worked for 3 years, added the barber disapprovingly. A few children came into view. School's out for lunch, pronounced the sheriff. The door opened and Homer came in saying, Hello, everybody. Uncle Ulysses' Aunt Aggie sent me over to tell you to stir yourself over to the lunchroom and help serve blue plate specials. Uncle Ulysses sighed and prepared to leave. The sheriff cupped a hand behind his ear and said, What's that? Uncle Ulysses stopped sighing and everybody blistered. blistered. I don't know why I'm doing this series if I don't even know words. Whoa! Sorry, I'm taking a moment for myself to see this because this is interesting. I feel like my fingers are in the way. Look at that. There's so much to look at. It's kind of confusing. So they're alright, they're in the barber shop and they're just looking outside with the dog. Is that the doctor? Do doctors have carriages? I don't know. Anyways. The noise, it was sort of a rattle. Oh, it's just something else. Okay. It grew louder, and then suddenly an old car swung into the town square. The sheriff, the barber, Uncle Ulysses, and Homer watched it with gaping mouths as it rattled around the town square once, twice, and on the third time, slowed down and shivered to a stop right out front of Uncle Ulysses' lunchroom. It wasn't because this car was old enough to be an antique, or because some strange business was built onto it, or that the strange business was covered with a large canvas. No, that wasn't what made Homer and the sheriff and Uncle Ulysses and the barber stare so long. It was the car's driver. Gosh, what a beard, said Homer. And what a head of hair, said the barber. That's a $2 cutting job if I ever saw one. Could you see his face? Asked the sheriff. Nope, answered Uncle Ulysses, still staring across the square. They watched the stranger untangle his beard from the steering wheel and go into the lunchroom. Uncle Ulysses promptly dashed for the door, saying, "See you later." "Wait for me," the sheriff called. "I'm sort of hungry." Homer followed, and the barber shouted, "Don't forget to come back and tell me the news." I keep giving everyone accents. I don't think they have that accent. "Okay, and if I bring you a new customer, I get a commission." The stranger was sitting at the far end of the lunch counter, looking very shy and embarrassed. Homer's Aunt Aggie had already served him a blue plate special and was eyeing him with suspicion. To be polite, Homer and Uncle Ulysses pretended to be busy behind the counter, and the sheriff pretended to study the menu, though he knew every single word on it by heart. They just glanced in the stranger's direction once in a while. Finally, Uncle Ulysses' curiosity got the best of him, and he sauntered down to the stranger and asked, "Are you enjoying your lunch? Is everything all right?" The stranger appeared to be very embarrassed, and you could easily tell he was blushing underneath his beard and all his hair. "Yes, sir, it's a very good lunch," he replied, with a nod. When he nodded, a stray wisp of beard accidentally got into the gravy. This made him more embarrassed than ever. Uncle Ulysses waited for the stranger to start a conversation, but he didn't. So Uncle Ulysses said, "Nice day today." The stranger said, "Yes, nice day," and dropped a fork. Now the stranger really was embarrassed. He looked as though he would like to sink right through the floor. Uncle Ulysses quickly handed the man another fork and eased himself away so as not to embarrass him into breaking a plate or falling off his stool. Interesting. What is going on with this guy? He looks like that. That kind of makes a lot of sense now. Okay, that's interesting. Okay. Everyone's eyeing him. That's sad. Let him eat. After he finished lunch, the stranger reached into the pocket of his patched coat and drew out a leather money bag. He paid for his lunch, nodded goodbye, and crept out the door "Humph," said Aunt Aggie. "Homer, it's time you started back to school." By mid-afternoon, every man, woman, and child in Centerburg had something to gossip about, speculate on, and argue about. Who was this stranger? Where did he come from? Where was he going? How long was his beard and his hair? What was his name? Did he have a business? What could be on the back of his car that was so carefully covered with a large canvas? Nobody knew. Nobody knew anything about the stranger except that he parked his car in the town parking space and was spending considerable time walking about town. People reported that he paused in his walking and whistled a few bars of some strange tune, a tune nobody had ever heard of. The stranger was shy when grown-ups were near, and he would cross the street or go around a block to avoid speaking to someone. However, he did not avoid children. He smiled at them and seemed delighted to have them follow him. People from all over town telephoned the sheriff at the barber shop, asking about the stranger and making reports as to what was going on. The sheriff was becoming a bit uneasy about the whole thing. He couldn't get near enough to the stranger to ask him his intentions, and if he did ask, the stranger would be too shy to give him an answer. As Homer passed by the barber shop on his way home from school, the sheriff called him in. "Homer," he said, "I'm gonna need your help. This stranger with the beard has got me worried. You see, Homer, I can't find out who he is or what he is doing here in town. He's probably a nice enough fella, just an individualist, but then again, he might be a fugitive in disguise or something." Homer nodded, and the sheriff continued. "Now, what I want you to do is gain his confidence. He doesn't seem to be afraid of children, and you might be able to find out what this is all about. I'll treat you to a double raspberry sundae. It's a deal." "Sheriff," said Homer, "I'll start right now." At 6 o'clock, Homer responded to the sheriff. "The stranger seems like a nice person, Sheriff," Homer began. "I walked down Market Street with him. He wouldn't tell me who he is or what he's doing, but he did say he'd been away from people for a great many years. He asked me to recommend a place for him to stay, and I said the Strand Hotel, so that's where he went, just now when I left him. I'll have to run home to dinner now, Sheriff, but I'll find out some more tomorrow. Don't forget about the raspberry sundae," said Homer. "I won't," replied the sheriff. "And Homer, don't forget to keep me posted on this fella." After Homer had gone, the sheriff turned to the barber and said, "Gall darn it, we don't know one blessed thing about this fella, except that he's shy." Did somebody catch that accent change? What? Where am I? Shy. That he's shy. And he's been away from people for quite a spell. For all we know, he might be a fugitive, or a lunatic, or maybe one of these amnesia cases. If he didn't have so much hair, I could tell in a second what kind of fellow he is," complained the sheriff. "Yep, just one look at a person's ears, I can tell." "Well," said the barber, "I judge people by their hair, and I've been thinking, this fellow looks like somebody I've heard about, or read about somewhere, like somebody out of a book. Do you understand, Sheriff?" "Well, yes, in a way, but I can tell you definite with a good look at his ears," said the sheriff. "Here comes Ulysses. Let's ask him what he thinks." Chambrosos. Uncle Ulysses considered a second and said, "Well, I judge a person by his waistline and his appetite. Now, I'm not saying I'm right, Sheriff, because I couldn't tell about his waistline under that old coat, but judging from his appetite, I'd say he's the sort of person that I've read about somewhere. I can't just put my finger on it. Seems as though it must have been in a book." Said the sheriff. Just then, Tony the shoe repair man came in for a haircut after he was settled in the barber chair. My gum is messing me up. In the barber chair, the sheriff asked him what he thought about the mysterious stranger. Well, Sheriff, I judge everybody by their feet and their shoes. Nobody's worn a pair of gaiters like his for 25 years. It seems as though those shoes must have just up and walked right out of the pages of some old dusty book. There, said the sheriff. Now we're getting somewhere. He rushed to the phone and called Mr. Hirsch of the Hirsch clothing store and asked, Say, Sam, what do you think about this stranger? Yes, the one with the beard. Storybook close. Thanks a lot, Sam. Good night. Then he called the garage and said, Hello, Luke. This is the sheriff talking. What do you think of this stranger in town? Yes. Literature, eh? Darned if I can see you can judge a man by the car he drives, but I'll take your word for it. Good night, Luke, and thanks a lot. The sheriff looked very pleased with himself. He paced up and down and muttered, getting somewhere at last. Then he surprised everyone by announcing that he was going over to the library. In a few minutes he was back, his mustache twitching with the excitement. I've solved it, he shouted. The librarian knew right off just what book to look in. It's Rip Van Winkle. This fellow's like, he must have driven up into the hills some 30 years ago and fell asleep or got amnesia or something. Yeah, that's it, agreed the barber along with Uncle Ulysses and the shoemaker. Then Uncle Ulysses asked, but how about that whatever it is underneath the canvas on the back of his car? Now look here, Ulysses, shouted the sheriff. You're just trying to complicate my deduction. Come on, let's play checkers. Bright and early the next morning, the Rip Van Winkleish stranger was up and wandering around Centerburg. By 10 o'clock, everyone was referring to him as Old Rip and remarking how clever the sheriff was at deducting things. The sheriff tried to see what was under the canvas, but couldn't make head or tail of what it was. Uncle Ulysses peeked at it too and said, Goodness only knows. But never mind, Sheriff. If anything can find out what this thing is, Homer will do the finding. We love our little detective. That same afternoon after school, we dismissed Uncle Ulysses. The same afternoon after school was dismissed, Uncle Ulysses and the sheriff saw Homer strolling down the street with Old Rip. Looks like he's explaining something to Homer, said the sheriff. Homer will find out, said Uncle Ulysses proudly. Then they watched through the barber shop window while the stranger took Homer across the square to the parking lot and showed him his car. He lifted one corner of the canvas and pointed underneath while Homer looked and nodded his head. They shook hands and the stranger went to his hotel, and Homer headed for the barber shop. Did he talk? Asked the sheriff the minute Homer opened the door. What's his name? What is he doing? Yes, he told me everything, said Homer. It sounds just like a story out of a book. Yes, son. Did he get amnesia up in the hills? Asked the sheriff. Well, no, not exactly, Sheriff, but he did live in the hills for the past 30 years. Well, what's he doing here now? The barber demanded. I better start at the beginning, said Homer. That's a good idea, son, said the sheriff. I'll take a few notes just for future reference. Well, to begin with, Homer started, his name is Michael Murphy. Just plain Michael Murphy. About 30 years ago, he built himself a small vacation cabin out in the hills, someplace on the far side of the State Forest Reserve. Then, he liked living in the cabin so much, he decided to live there all of the time. He packed his belongings on his car and moved out to the hills. He decided to be a dermot. I said dermot, asked the sheriff. Not exactly a hermit, Homer continued. But yesterday was the first time that he came out of the hills and saw people for 30 years. That's why he's so shy. Then he's moving back to civilization, suggested Uncle Ulysses. years later, said Homer. I've only told as far as 29 years ago. Can't you skip a few years, son, and get to the point? Demanded the sheriff. Nope. 29 years ago, Homer repeated firmly. Mr. Murphy read in an almanac that if a man can make a better mousetrap than anybody else, the world will be a path to his house, even if it is way out in the hills. So, he started making mousetraps. There was a pause, and then the sheriff said, Will you repeat that again, son? I said Mr. Murphy started making mouse traps. He made good ones too, the very best, and one of Mr. Murphy's traps caught a mouse. That was the end of the mouse for all time. The sheriff forgot all about taking notes as Homer continued. But nobody came to buy the traps. But that was just as well. You see, because 28 years ago, Mr. Murphy began to feel sorry for the mice. He came to realize that he would have to change his whole approach. He thought and thought. And finally he decided to build mouse traps that wouldn't hurt the mice. He spent the next 15 years doing research on what was the pleasantest possible way for a mouse to be caught. He discovered that being caught to music pleased mice the most, even more than cheese. Then, said Homer, Mr. Murphy set to work to make a musical mousetrap. That wouldn't hurt the mice, inquired Uncle Ulysses. That wouldn't hurt the mice, Homer stated. It was a long, hard job too, because first he had to build an organ out of reeds that the mice liked the sound of, and then he had to compose a tune that the mice couldn't possibly resist. Then he incorporated it all into a mousetrap. That wouldn't hurt the mice, interrupted the barber. That wouldn't hurt the mice, Homer went on. The mousetrap caught mice, alright. The only trouble was it was too big, what with the organ and all, and sort of impractical for general use because somebody had to stay around and pump the organ. Yes, I can see that wouldn't be practical, said Uncle Ulysses, stroking his chin. But with a small electric motor. But he solved it, Uncle Ulysses. The whole idea seems very practical after you get used to it. He decided since the trap was too large to use in a house, he would fasten it onto his car, which he hadn't used for so long anyway. Then he could drive it to a town and make a bargain with the mayor to remove all the mice. You see, he would start the musical mousetrap to working and drive up and down the streets and alleys. Then all of the mice would run out of the houses to get themselves caught in this trap that plays music that no mouse ever born can possibly resist. That's why he was driving around. I get it. Okay. After the trap is full of mice, Mr. Murphy drives them out past the city limits, somewhere where they can't find their way home, and lets them go. Still without hurting them, suggested the barber. Of course, said Homer. The sheriff chewed on his pencil. Uncle Ulysses stroked on his chin, and the barber ran his fingers through his hair. Homer noticed the silence and said, I guess the idea is sort of startling when you first hear about it, but if a town has a water truck to sprinkle streets, and a street sweeping truck to remove dirt, why shouldn't they maybe just hire Mr. Murphy's musical mousetrap once in a while to remove mice? Uncle Ulysses stroked his chin again, and then said, By gum, this man Murphy is a genius. I told Mr. Murphy that you would understand, Uncle Ulysses, said Homer with a grin. I told him the mayor was a friend of yours, and you could talk him into anything, even hiring a musical mousetrap. Who ever heard of a bicycle mousetrap? Said the sheriff. That doesn't hurt the mice, added the barber, as Homer and Uncle Ulysses went off arm in arm to see the mayor. It scarcely took Uncle Ulysses and Homer half an hour to convince the mayor that Mr. Murphy's musical mousetrap should be hired to rid Centerburg's of mice. While Uncle Ulysses chatted on with the mayor, Homer dashed over to the hotel to fetch Mr. Murphy. Homer came back with the bearded inventor and introduced him to the mayor and to Uncle Ulysses. The mayor opened a drawer of his desk and brought out a bag of jelly beans. "Have one," he said to Mr. Murphy, to sort of break the ice and to make his shy visitor feel at home. Mr. Murphy relaxed and answered the mayor's questions without blushing too much. "How do we know this thing of a jig of yours will do what you say it will?" asked the mayor. Mr. Murphy just whistled a few bars. Tum, tum, titty da yay. No, tum, titty ad. And a couple of mice jumped right out of the mayor's desk. It's because he had the jelly beans in there. Of course, Homer explained. The mice come quicker and get removed when the mousetrap plays a tune through the streets. Mr. Murphy guarantees to remove every single mouse from Centerburg for only $30. "It's a bargain," said the mayor. I wondered where my jelly beans were disappearing to. Are you still eating them? Oh wait, there was a picture. My bad, G. Look, that's funny. That's the picture. The little mice look so cute, but it's adorable. His beard is so long. And he shook hands with Mr. Murphy. Then he proclaimed Saturday as the day for... Oh, wow. Then he proclaimed Saturday as the day for demousing Centerburg. By this time, everyone knew that the shy stranger's name was Michael Murphy, but people still spoke of him as Rip Van Winkle. Rip for short, because of the sheriff's deduction. Everybody talked about the musical mousetrap that didn't hurt the mice, and the mayor's demousing proclamation. The children especially were looking forward to the great event. They watched with interest while Mr. Murphy went over his car and his musical trap to be sure everything was in perfect working order. Homer and Freddy, oh yeah, that's his friend, right? I think Homer and Freddy and most of the other children were planning to follow the trap all around town Saturday and see the mice come out and get caught in Michael Murphy's musical trap. "Gosh, Homer," said Freddy, let's follow him until he lets them loose out in the country. That will be a sight, seeing all those mice let loose at once. "Well, Freddy, I've been thinking it might not be a good idea to follow the mousetrap past the city limits," said Homer to Freddy's surprise. "You know, Freddy, I've been over at the library reading up on mice and music. Music can do funny things sometimes. It can soothe savage beasts and charm snakes and lots of things. If we're going to follow this musical trap till the mice are loose, we better make some plans." Homer and Freddy spent all Friday recess period making plans. They decided that all the children should meet in the schoolyard before the demousing started on Saturday. They arranged to signal thumbs up if everything was going all right, and thumbs down if anyone was in trouble. It's just to be on the safe side, Homer explained. Saturday dawned, a beautiful crisp fall day. Fine weather for the grand demousing of Centerburg. Mr. Michael Murphy came forth from the Strand Hotel, and after carefully slinging his long gray beard over his shoulder, he cranked his car and warmed up the engine. He carefully removed the canvas covering from the musical mousetrap and ever so painstakingly arranged the spiral ramps and runways so that no mouse, no matter how careless, could stub a toe or bump a nose. He then climbed behind the steering wheel, and the musical mousetrap was underway. A loud cheer arose from the crowd of children as Mr. Murphy yanked a lever and the reed organ started to play. Even before the cheering stopped, the mice began to appear. Through the streets of Centerburg rolled Mr. Michael Murphy and his musical mousetrap. The mice came running from every direction. Fat, I don't know why I took it out. Whoa. That's crazy. That's so many. That is crazy. They all went running up the ramps and runways and disappeared in Michael Murphy's musical Mousetrap. The children followed behind, enjoying the whole thing almost as much as the mice. As they're traveling down every street in town, the procession came to a stop in front of the town hall. And the mayor came out and presented Mr. Murphy with his $30 fee. 30 bright, crisp, new $1 bills. Just as the mayor finished counting out the bills into Mr. Murphy's hand, the sheriff stepped up and said, "Mr. Murphy, I hope this won't embarrass you too much. In fact, I hate to mention it at all, but this here mystical mousetrap of yours has a license plate that is 30 years old. A new license will cost you just exactly $30. Mr. Murphy blushed, crimson under his beard. "It's the law, you know, and I can't help it," apologized the sheriff. Poor Mr. Murphy. Poor, shy Mr. Murphy. He handed his $30 to the sheriff, took his new license plates, and crept down the city hall steps. He climbed into his car and drove slowly away toward the edge of the town, with the musical mousetrap, I thought I was saying moose, mousetrap playing his reading music. The children followed along to see Mr. Murphy release all of the mice. That's a lot of people. Here, how close can I go? Not that close. Okay. Ew, see, my face under the book was scary. I hated that so much. "I really hated to do that, Mayor," said the sheriff as the procession turned out of sight on Route 56A. "It's the law, you know, and if I hadn't reminded him, he might have been arrested in the next town he visits. There's no telling how this demousing would have ended if the children's librarian hadn't come rushing up shouting, 'Sheriff, Sheriff, quick! We guessed the wrong book!'" "What?" shouted the sheriff and the mayor and Uncle Ulysses. "Yes," gasped the children's librarian. "Not Rip Van Winkle, but another book, The Pied Piper of Hamelin." "Jiminy Christmas," yelled the sheriff. "And almost every child in town is following him this very minute." The sheriff and the librarian and the mayor and Uncle Ulysses all jumped into the sheriff's car and roared away after the procession. They met up with the children just outside the city limits. "Come back! Turn around, children!" they shouted. "I'll treat everybody to a donut!" yelled Uncle Ulysses. The children didn't seem to hear, and they kept right on following the musical mousetrap. "The music must have affected their minds," cried the librarian. "No! Oh my gosh, wait. There's no way that's happening. Wait, did I show this? I don't think I did. There's this page. And there's this page. Wait, what is going on? There's no way. I'm sorry for the background noises. I have no idea what that sound is, but it's been doing that for the past weeks, months maybe, so my apologies. "Sheriff, we can't lose all these children with election time coming up next month," warned the mayor. "Let's give Murphy another $30. That's the idea," said Uncle Ulysses. "Drive up next to him, Sheriff, and I'll hand him the money." The sheriff's car drew alongside the musical mousetrap, and Uncle Ulysses tossed a wad of $30 bills onto the seat next to the shy Mr. Murphy. "Please don't take them away," pleaded the librarian. "Come, Murphy, let's be reasonable," shouted the mayor. Mr. Murphy was very flustered, and his steering was distinctly wobbly. Then the sheriff got riled and yelled at the top of his lungs, "Get him low! Get him go! Gurney, let him sight it was, well worth walking to the city limits to see. The mice came out in a torrent. The reedy organ on the musical mousetrap stopped playing, and the squeaking of mice and the cheering of children filled the air. The torrent of mice paused, as if sensing direction. And then each Centerburg mouse started off in a straight line to his own Centerburg mouse hole. What? Mr. Murphy didn't pause. He stepped on the gas, and the musical mousetrap swayed down the road. The mayor, the children's librarian, the sheriff, Uncle Ulysses, and the children watched as it grew smaller and finally disappeared. Then Uncle Ulysses remembered the children. He turned around and noticed them grinning at each other and holding their thumbs in the air. They paid no attention whatever when they were called. That music has pixied these children, he moaned. No, it hasn't, Uncle Ulysses, said Homer, who had just come up. There's not a thing the matter with them. That dog belly can't cure in 2 shakes. Just to be on the safe side, Freddie and I asked Dog Belly to come down to the schoolyard this morning and put cotton in all the children's ears. You know, just like Ulysses. Not you, Uncle Ulysses, but the ancient one. The one that Homer wrote about. Not me, but the ancient one. You mean to say Dog Belly is mixed up in this? Asked the mayor. Yes, he thought it was awfully funny. Our being so cautious. Uncle Ulysses laughed and said, round 'em up and we'll all go down to the lunchroom for donuts and milk. Sheriff, said the mayor, with election time coming next month, we gotta put our heads together and cook up a good excuse for spending $60 of the taxpayers' money. I can't believe it. That's crazy, bro. That's crazy. What is chapter 6 is called Wheels of Progress. Oh, and I think he's gonna be with Freddie. Cute. Well, there's that. That was chapter 5, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Oh my gosh, that was I kind of felt very long. I don't know why. But that was fun and it was funny. Okay, so I have the books for you. And we have 3. Here we have Beverly, clearly. Ramona, the Brave. This is the blurb. First grader Ramona. Ramona Quimbley likes to think she's brave and fearless. She thinks she's being brave one day in the park defending her big sister, but Beezus calls her silly and embarrassing. Ramona also has a new bedroom of her own, and she finds it's not easy to be brave when there might be ghostly, boneless gorillas oozing under the door at night, and no one across the room to whisper to. Then Ramona has a tangle with a great big growling dog on her way to school, but Ramona will not give in to a mean old dog after all. After all, she's her father's spunky little gal. Or is she? Spooky. So there's Ramona the Brave if you want to read that. So far it looks like there is 9 chapters. It's this thick. Up to you if you guys want to read it. We have Noses Are Red. And it says this big blurb. It's like a whole long book. Dobert is back and his unlikely host is Alan Dingwall, not the bravest boy on the planet Earth. Alan is off on a camping trip with his good friend, Victor. Clear blue lakes and ghost stories around the campfire should be fun, right? Not if the person who is taking you camping happens to be the muscle-bound Christopher, your mother's new boyfriend. And not if you aren't exactly a fan of the great outdoors, with its bugs and snakes and swamps and bears. Alan would much rather be playing the only game he's really good at, cards. The woods are full of dangers, and the boys have sisters. I don't have any of the other books, sadly. Otherwise, I would have read Smile first. Obviously. But we have sisters. Alright, let's read the back. Ready? Raina can't wait to be a big sister. But once Amara is born, things aren't quite how she expected them to be. Amara is cute, but she's also a cranky, grouchy baby and mostly prefers to play by herself. Their relationship doesn't improve much over the years, but when a baby brother enters the picture, and later, when something doesn't seem right between their parents, they realize they must figure out how to get along. They are sisters after all. Oh, and this one's a graphic novel. That's what it is. That's so cool. Sorry, that was cool. So if you guys want to read Sisters, Ramona the Brave, or Noses Are Red, let me know. And let me know which one you want me to read first. Okay. Anyways, that's it. That's all I got for you today. That was chapter 5 of Homer Price. And it was actually pretty funny. And I just realized I was right. He's technically a little detective. Not really, but that's what he does. He figures things out. And helps when there's a crisis of some sort. So he's like